177 slots for Head Start children that qualify with families who are at or below the poverty guidelines. And when we look at the towns of Chatham and Harwich, you definitely have a level of poverty here in terms of percentage of children at the poverty level. What you don't have, the other piece of the puzzle that we look at when we look at our Head Start programs is the number of children that are actually at the poverty level. So you may meet the criteria in terms of percentage per capita within your towns. What is not meeting is the number of children for us to shift slots from other programs over to the Chatham school. So our conversation morphed into a little bit of a different model, which is what we have as well, which is a combination of state subsidized slots. So we hold a lot of income eligible slots, which are different than vouchers, by the way. So families who have vouchers can select any provider they want to go to and use those vouchers, including Cape Cod Child Development. So we have the most number of children on vouchers in our programs. Our programs are different because we have contracts with the state for income eligible children. And so we have about 130, 140 contracted slots that I can move anywhere. And so those are state subsidized slots where they are sliding fee scale for the parents, which is a wonderful option for families that do not qualify for Head Start. So our programming is set up so that we first qualify for children as to whether they are eligible for our Head Start program. The eligibility criteria starts at $24,000, which is hard to meet for a lot of families. The state income programs are, the eligibility requirements are a little bit different, and the income thresholds are a little bit higher. So oftentimes we find, in particular here in the Cape, that most families fit into that criteria. So actually that's a great benefit that we can bring here to the Chatham. So what we're proposing is that we open up our first classroom at the Chatham Elementary School under this administration using income eligible slots, vouchers, and private pay. So the way we set our private pay rates are, right now it's $215 per week. Those are our newest rates. That sets our rates right above what we're reimbursed by the state for our programs, and we can't go below that, by the way, under Massachusetts state law for our private pay rates, and they're also just below the competitive market. So what we're trying to do is help those groups, that group of parents that may not qualify for Head Start, they may not qualify for state subsidies, but we offer another option, which is private pay at the lowest possible level. So that's the classroom that we're talking about, is a mixture of as many income eligible as we can put in there, as many voucher children as we can put in there, and then private pay as appropriate. And the right mix, because our mission is very focused on helping families in need from an economic standpoint. The right mix from a classroom standpoint is roughly about 70 to 80% subsidized through vouchers or income eligible, and the remainder private pay, so that financially we can make it work, just so that we're just breaking even on the classroom. So is there anything more that you would, what am I not covering, Scott?
I think one of the things that we've also talked about is a menu option that's really not available in what we offer. We have preschools, the preschool classrooms that we run at both Harwich Elementary School and Chatham Elementary School, but they're classrooms that just operate on the school year, and they are partial day programs. So what I've been talking with Ann about is to look at a full day, full year model. Chatham Elementary School, we've got custodians in there year round, so that we could provide families a menu option that really isn't there for them by having year-round full-day services for working families.
Correct. So the Head Start program is a half-day, 9-month program, which doesn't necessarily meet the needs of your families. So thank you so much, Scott. So this is what we're proposing is and the state contracts are full year, full day. That's a huge difference between a Head Start and a non-Head Start. And oftentimes we can combine them both, and children might qualify for both. But in this case, we're not proposing to move the Head Start. We would like to propose full day, full year, which is exactly what families do need really across the Cape. Head Start fills a huge need in terms of kindergarten readiness and having children get access to great preschool, high quality preschool. That's the full day, full year is really the most beneficial way to meet both the needs of the family so that they can work and attain outstanding kindergarten readiness levels.
Good question. When you say full day, do you mean full school day or do you mean full work day?
Full workday. So 7:30 to 5:30.
I was hoping that was in your answer.
Yes, 7:30 to 5:30, 5 days a week.
Yes, Ms. Long?
What's the age breakdown for that? What age?
Sure.
Yeah.
So Head Start, if it was Head Start, just so that we're clear, and I'll try to
Yeah.
differentiate a little bit, is 3 to 5 years old. The program that we're recommending, because it's outside the Head Start guidelines, is 2.9 to 5.
Okay, thank you.
And we can go over the age of 5 in a state subsidized contract under certain circumstances based on when the birthday is or other particular situations.
Mr. Russell?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I missed the income eligible slots.
Mm-hmm.
What's that income eligible baseline?
So it does change year to year, and that baseline, we haven't got the new numbers, but it's roughly, so if Head Start, the lower, and it's different levels, of course. So it's about a $10,000 income difference between the federal guideline of $24,000 in that particular threshold to the equal apples to apples at the state level. So it gives a wider gap so that more families would qualify for the state income eligible. So it's about a $10,000 overall. So if Head Start is at $24,000 for the minimum family of 4, then the state would be another $10,000 above that.
A couple more questions. The youngsters would be identified via demographics in Howard and Chatham or all over the Cape, or?
You're talking about for this program?
Yes, yeah.
So we would seek to fill the needs of the Monomoy school system, since we're being provided the classroom in the Monomoy school system. So our priority would always be Harwich and Chatham, unless you would prefer some other model, which we would be open to. But we actually, because of our partnership with your school system, would seek to provide services to families in your school district. It's not exclusive, so if for some reason we do not fill it up and we have a private pay family that works in Chatham or feels as though that would be okay, I would probably approach Scott and say, how do you feel about this? And we would make a decision, but it really would be specifically for, the Monomoy school systems.
Okay, a couple more. Transportation. Moms and dads pick the youngsters up or drop them off?
That is correct.
Okay.
With our other contracts, the supportive contracts for DCF and the homeless children and those served by DTA, we are required to provide transportation. So those are some of the contracts that we can't move up here yet because the transportation is more complicated. So the state income eligible and the voucher and the private pay do not require transportation, but that may be something that we add in at a later date. So first we want to get the classroom up and running and the teachers hired and moving forward, and then we can consider a different type of contract. Our statistics are not necessarily showing a huge need in this area for supportive children in comparison to say the Hyannis area or the Falmouth area. So we could discuss that over the course of time and if the demographics change.
Two more quick questions. The all day, who provides food for the youngsters for lunch?
Great question. So these children would qualify under your guidelines for free and reduced lunches. So what we've talked about is, especially since you do your own in-house lunch program, is incorporating them under your free and reduced lunch program. We also have the option of billing them ourselves and providing the food, but what we do, a good comparison is the Nantucket Public Schools. So we have a whole food transport system, Cape Cod Child Development, but we can't transport food over to Nantucket every day. So the school system takes care of providing that food, and their children do not have the same percentage as yours do for the free and reduced lunch program. So they charge us the amount that we're reimbursed. So we do a reimbursement with Nantucket, but your situation is a little bit different. We would have the ability to actually fall under your guidelines in your program. So food would be provided.
What about during the summer?
Sure. So during the summer, our Head Start programs close for the months of June, July, and August. So we have capacity within our food transport to come right up here. So we cut out about a third of our locations from our Head Start programs for those months, and it allows us to have the capacity to bring food up here when you're not open.
Last question. I'm kind of a secondary guy, and I've long since forgot how they used to work. For younger kids, 2.5 years old, 3 and 4, their day.
What's their day like?
These are youngsters who, without this program, would be at home or covered by, as best
They may or may not be at home, right? So they may be doing patchwork childcare, which they're probably, if they're not in a structured learning environment, in all likelihood, they are not getting concentrated structured learning. And so they probably will not be at the level needed for kindergarten readiness for optimal learning through the course of their lifetime. And the kindergarten readiness goals, and I think you probably know this a little bit, because I think you were in the school system over in Barnstable for a little bit, is if you do not go into kindergarten with a certain level of readiness, that impacts your third grade reading levels, which then have direct correlations to levels of incarceration and substance abuse. There are correlations that can be made statistically now over long-term studies that have been done. So the importance of kindergarten readiness is absolutely critical to a school system in order to eliminate behavioral issues or minimize them, as well as the structure provides for really good learning at an early age. Great
Thanks.
questions.
Okay, Ms. Stout?
Yes, I'm just interested. It sounds like a wonderful program. The mechanics of the 2.5 through 5-year-olds, how does that work in the same room, and the number of kids and the number of adult staff?
Sure, so we would have a class of 20 here, and we would be staffed with 2.5 FTEs. So we would have essentially 3 people in the classroom at varying times, because it's a 7:30 to 5:30 model, plus we have to cover lunches. And the children they have structured activities through the entire day. The morning is made up of playtime as well as education. So it's every day is education. There is no summer camp in these programs. It's very structured with play involved. And then in the afternoon they do have nap time. And they do everything together, except we would break the room into about 4 sections, 3 or 4 sections, depending on the room. We would set it up according to quality standards that we have and we are measured on. And so the children have some ability to go into different areas at some points of the day, but they stay together and they do all the same things. And we also provide, dental hygiene and making sure that the children are medically taken care of. So we have pediatricians on call and as consultants. Similar to probably how you have it, we just have it a little differently.
Thank you.
Any of,
You just mentioned class size of 20, and that would be your capacity for that classroom? Or
We could go a little bit higher in that classroom.
I guess I was kind of a leading
Why
question.
20?
And my leading question would be, do you think you're going to get 20 students? And if so, do you think you might get more? And then what would happen after that?
Sure.
That's kind of where my question was going.
So one of our first meetings was a larger community meeting where Scott invited a number of members from the Early Childhood Provider Network, as well as community members who provide services to family and other members of the public school system. And so we had a good conversation about who had what were the waiting lists like. And so we heard about numbers like 65, 40, everybody has a waiting list, and these families are in need, and we all agreed that in all likelihood they would qualify for either Head Start, but more so the state income eligible slot. So clearly a need. 20 is the right number. When we started in Nantucket, we started with 16 because we wanted to see how it went. Again, that's a little bit different. It's an island. Here we're not quite as concerned about that. We're comfortable with a class size of 20, and we're not really comfortable. It's my preference not to go above 20, but I have to say your classrooms are absolutely spectacular. They are large, they are beautiful. They have the ability, if we wanted to add another, if we could do a capacity hire and add another teacher, and it works from a financial break-even standpoint. Again, we don't need to make money. We're a nonprofit. I could add a couple more slots, maybe. I'd have to think about it because we'd need to really think through the quality aspects. It always has to have the level of quality that we're looking for versus the number. So we would turn away children until we came to agreements with the school systems. The other important aspect of this is a complete partnership with the school system. So any decisions that are made with Robin, the principal, and with Scott, and we're in full agreement about the number of children and why we would increase it or decrease it, because we have to work that way. We need to be a part of the system, not and always in partnership. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm most comfortable at 20.
No, yes, and I guess what would happen to, is it like a lottery system, or is it first come, first serve? How does that work?
Sure.
Let's say you had 30 kids that qualify for the low income and the voucher?
So the first thing, once we agree, and once we have a little bit of testing and some things to do before we confirm, we would first go out to what's called the kinder wait list, which is the wait list for the state of Massachusetts for families waiting to get a voucher or state subsidized slots. And so within our state subsidized slot contracts, we have to reach out to those kinder wait families first and send them letters. And when they respond, they get first preference. Second preference would go to voucher, and then third to private pay. And so once you pass the income eligible and you wait a time period for those families to get back to you, which they probably will, then we go out both to voucher and we open the door to voucher and private pay. And it almost feels like first come, first serve, but really we give the preference to the voucher families. But we can only wait so long because we need to fill the classroom
Right.
as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
What a great question.
Yes,
Um,
Ms. Long?
Just to expand a little bit on that, for the kinder wait slots, then the voucher, then the private pay, that we're still talking about the Harwich and Chatham residents, the Monomoy
That is correct,
students.
unless for some reason
We're under-
we're at 15 and we have 20 slots.
And then you go
it
back
becomes
to the
financially
kinder
not
list?
viable for me.
Okay.
There's a threshold.
Okay.
It's not 18, it's more like 15 or 16.
Okay.
And it depends on the makeup, right? So if we have 5 private pays out of 15 and 10 state, then it's probably okay.
Right.
If it's all state subsidized, it's not okay. So then I would talk with Scott and Robin and say, okay, we've done everything we can, we have a little bit of capacity, are you okay for this school year if we do this? And then we would reevaluate at the end of the year. And we would be clear with the parents that our preference goes to Monomoy children, but we will accept them and we'll see what happens in the year after that.
And then my next question to that would be what's the impact on our current, and I could have totally missed this, but our impact on our current pre-K, they merge into this Head Start program, or ours are older, that they're totally separate from this?
So, another great question. So every public school system, as you probably know, has an integrated preschool. So I think this is the question that you're asking, is how does this mesh with the integrated preschool? So the integrated preschool is always going to be a combination of children with special needs who move out of our early intervention program and come into the great public school system, and peers, right? Children that come in as peers with those special needs children. So this does not impact that whatsoever, at all. So when we moved into Nantucket, for example, we had, it's complete partnership. There was I don't think that there were any children that moved from integrated over to our program. We're allowed to have up to 10% of our children in any of our classrooms as special needs. We prefer to see those children, if at all possible, in the integrated preschool. So we're always going to think first about integrated preschool and make sure you guys are all set on the integrated preschool and it's the right mix. And then we're there then to provide the services and resources for the children that are not in the integrated preschool. So integrated preschool always comes first, followed by us. And that's, I believe, how it really should be.
Sorry, I have one more. My last question is, I think Sharon kind of touched on it, the age gap between the 2.9 and the 5-year-old and kind of curriculum and how you balance that. And you mentioned that there are, potentially 4 sections for varying activities throughout the day. And I understand at different ages, you can probably do the same activity and the kids will participate in that activity in different levels. But is there anything else done to kind of differentiate between those 2 age groups?
Sure. So we follow very clear guidelines that we implement across all of our preschools that incorporate the highest level of standard, which actually is the Head Start standard. So Head Start is outstanding in terms of their quality. We also, by the way, we're also what's called QRIS level 4 in all of our 32 classrooms, with the exception of 1. QRS levels change according to when you move classrooms. But in any case, we are at the highest level of quality, which is unusual across the state of Massachusetts. So very high quality across the state, and within the context of the state of Massachusetts. We are a Head Start program, so we overlay all of those programs. But specifically to answer your question, children are very different coming in at 2.9. And some of them are actually at the 4-year-old levels. And then we have children coming in at 4.5, who actually are more at the 2.9 and 3. What we find, generally speaking, is we do differentiate to some degree, but that it tends to work well, that they're all learning together and we don't have to separate out. So we don't find ourselves having 2 different curriculums, one for 2.9 to 4 and one for 4 and 5. We don't tend to need that, and our quality stats show very good progression in terms of learning for the age gap. So you think it is a big age gap? It is and it isn't, because these children are coming into at very different places emotionally, intellectually, cognitively.
Mr. Russell?
I'm back again.
I'm so sorry, that's my phone, but ringing if you hear it.
Not so much the youngsters, but, and I think it's a great idea and great program. We have 2-point-something FTEs that would be brought forward to work out with these 20 youngsters. Who evaluates that staff?
Let me just turn my phone off. That's driving me crazy. Sorry.
Someone wants you.
Okay, I'm so sorry, Terry. Your question again. So,
I forgot my question.
You did not.
Who evaluates for this?
no, who evaluates the
Yes.
teachers?
Yes.
Well, there's Robin, who's our principal at the building
Correct.
level. I'm sure she'd be intervention with youngsters if things go on. But my question would be, would your staff be evaluated by you or by somebody else? Or is there a tie-in with Robin monthly? You meet with her, how's it going?
Sure.
Just,
So we fully train and evaluate the teaching staff. So your administrators never need worry about our classroom or our teachers unless there's an emergency of some sort. So really, the administration should only come into play when there's an emergency. We should be fully incorporated into all school protocols. So active shooter, for example, we should be a part of the team, a completely part of, so we are both part of a team, but we should not ever need administrative support because we will have a center manager who will be responsible for the Chatham classroom, who will be out here weekly or every couple of days to make sure everything's on track, addressing any family issues, any issues with child health, for example, and we'll oversee the teachers. So we'll fully train the teachers, we'll monitor them, we'll evaluate them. We will also have that center manager meeting with Robin on a, we set it up differently with different school systems according to what they want to do. So we have some schools that want to check in every week. We have some schools that say, you know what, a monthly check-in is just fine, and then you let me know. So we look to you to say, what would you like? We know that we'll have a good relationship with you. We know that the center manager and the teachers will feel like a part of your staff in a way, and we'll always be free to approach Robin or whoever in administration and address whatever they, through the center managers or otherwise. So we really strive to make sure that there is no burden on your administration, number one, unless there's an emergency, and I think that's a little bit different. And yet we seek to be incorporated into your family within the school appropriately, so. And we
Good,
can't
thank you.
always predict what's going to happen with children or with families that are challenged every day. So we have to rely on each other and use good judgment if situations come up. And we certainly see our fair share of those.
Between Terry and I, we're going to keep you here all
Jackie,
night.
this is okay. I love this, by the way. This is so fun.
What other areas of the school on the property do you need to, or will you need to be scheduled and utilized? Playground, cafeteria, gymnasium, any of those? And-
We
and
will
does
not
Robin
need
work
the, so
those
let me
into
tell
it?
you what we won't need. It might
Okay.
be easier. So we will not need the cafeteria. However, if you would feel it's appropriate and the timing works well, based on our preschoolers, it's always wonderful to incorporate them into the school activities. So if there's a way to have them eat in the cafeteria, which is where they're going to be eating when they go into kindergarten, that's always best, right? So we will work with Robin to figure out, do we want to have the kids eat in the classroom or in the cafeteria? What's the better experience? What does the school want to do? We'd be open to either. We definitely need playground, and we talked a little bit about that. It has to pass our licensing, which we expect that it will. There's with some minor modifications. And we have a separate entrance, which we've already accommodated. We have a bathroom in the classroom or down the hall, and we would need the administrative front area because we do not necessarily want our parents entering during the day. We want them entering through the administrative versus the side door. In the summertime, that will be a little bit different. So we've talked a little bit about how it would be both independent, but we have to make sure that our parents follow the protocols of the school and the safety aspects of your school, and we do not want our parents walking around your school. Okay, so we'll work out those protocols. We have never had an issue, by the way, in any of the public schools that we're in. to the
So
best of my knowledge.
follow-up to the modifications on the playground, is that something that we're doing or something that you do to meet your licensing? I think is what you said.
So It's something that we'll negotiate, we'll talk about, if it's, and typically, what we
terms of-
find is I'm sorry, Scott, you go.
In terms of modifications, if there are things as Ann's people and the licensing agency looks at, okay, this needs to change, we'll address it. It might be, needing to go and spread more of the mulch and make sure it's a particular type of mulch, which we have to do anyway. Other little things that we're doing, and I've got Rick Travers, our facilities director, looking into. It's lowering some sinks and lowering some toilets, just because while the bathrooms are kindergarten bathrooms, these are kids that are a little smaller than kindergartners, so he's looking into what's involved in terms of that. And then we have a portable air conditioning unit that's not being used in one of the buildings that we would move over to make sure that there's appropriate room climate in the summertime in that space. So we've been having our facilities folks kind of connecting with the program to go and look at, but it's, in the global scheme of things, it's pretty small changes that are needed to go and get the space up to this, because after all, I mean, the playground is used by by preschoolers as it is, and the bathroom was used by kindergartners. It just needs some minor adjustments to have it ready for a preschool bathroom.
And then follow up to the separate entrance. As you know, we have like a specific drop-off and pickup system, and you're having a separate entrance at the same time, or?
So we're going to talk to, this is where we get into a little bit more of the details that is directed by the school system. So this is when Robin will say, I'm comfortable with your parents dropping off between 7:30 and 8 on the side door, but after 8 o'clock, we want a little bit more protocol, because we have a little bit more of so she needs to tell us what works for the school, because the school will close before we'll close, because we're going to be open until 5:30. So there'll be times that we're going to have parents use the external door with the keypad, which we'll put in place, if it isn't already, and we will have times that we say to the parents, you have to go through the administration. I think that's what we agreed to.
The parents have a keypad, you said?
There will be a keypad that is used for the classroom that the parents will have access to get into the class. So the parents have to have access to get into the classroom, and so we will use an alarm keypad.
Thank you.
Any other, Ms. Stout?
I have two questions. I had one, but now I'm with the keypad. I have another. So, with the keypad, how would that prevent them from accessing the building at a different time of the day that we don't want them to access the building?
So we would decide whether we wanted to shut off access of the keypad system between certain times of the day.
Okay, fabulous. The other question was, the school nurse would be involved with children if they had issues.
Oh, yeah, that's my other question.
Well, we'd have to talk about that. So this would be a conversation that we would have with Robin. We, generally speaking, at our sites, we do not have a school nurse, and we have not used the services or contracted for the services of school nurse. We have a nurse, we have two nurses that work for us in Hyannis, and so usually, if there's an emergency, the emergency is addressed, 911, right? And so what we don't want to do is cross the liabilities. So we want to keep the liability within our entity, and you want to keep the liability within yours. So my recommendation is that we wouldn't cross over the school nurse. We should have the teachers are all trained on basic first aid, so bleeding, bloody noses, cuts, those types of things. We have protocols in place for health and safety. And again, we know exactly when to call for 911. We know when to call our pediatric consultants in, and we're pretty good about that. So in the event that, I'm not saying that we wouldn't use the school nurse, by the way, because we can't dictate every single circumstance, and we're always going to use good common sense and for the safety of the children.
I'm really appreciative of your wanting to follow the protocol, since there are different programs for liability, but in general, for other things, I mean, these are the children from Harwich and Chatham, so it's wonderful that they're getting this benefit.
It is. And your children will become my children. They already
That's
are.
right.
because we take care of your children in the early intervention program, and some of your children do go to our programs. So that's how we look at it. We have children,
Yesterday.
and we help them in any way possible within our programs. So we would become a part of your school system,
Right.
which I think is the right way to do that.
Okay. Oh, Mr.
Do you
Caffrey?
guys potty train?
We do,
You do?
yes,
So the
yes.
child doesn't have to be potty trained yet?
That is correct. Yeah, we're not required, we are required from the state to accept children that are not potty trained.
Okay.
Because children, a lot of our families don't have their children potty trained for lots of different reasons. So that is not a requirement. So that does differentiate us a little bit.
Anything else? All right.
Just one last thing, just to kind of share and emphasize. When we met initially with Ann and several stakeholders, that programs that run early childhood in both of our towns, it's pretty clear that that there's rather sizable wait list out there for families in our two communities for children in this age range. So I want to sort of dispel any notion that we're putting somebody out of business to have this. We're not. I'm not looking at this as our schools coming in to go put a local business out of business. It's we have available classrooms. There are families with need. And I think this is a good thing for us to do for our two communities, to go support families.
And just to that, thank you for mentioning that, because I just want to say that I'm not being asked by my board to be here, opening up a classroom in Chatham. My board is saying, please go where the mission is. Go to where you're being asked to go and where the need is. And so if it's, and we were very clear, I was very clear with the providers that there should be room for all of us, because we all take care of slightly different demographics and children in terms of their economic status. And so we would never seek to cause any issues with any of the existing providers. In fact, we would seek to not do that. And I think what I said to them in the meeting is we want you to feel as though the children and the families that go to your program or seek to go into your program, you should work with those families, and those children that are on the wait list, you should feel comfortable referring to us, so that you always feel as though you're in a primary position. Just like the integrated preschool. I mean, these are providers that have been here for a while. They make their living here. They're smaller. I support them wholeheartedly and would never seek to take their business away. And if we ever got to a point where you had enough providers and you didn't need us and all the children were serviced, you're still not going to have the income eligible contracts, and that's huge, by the way. Our ability to shift some of those down here is actually something other providers can't give. And so we'd have to have that discussion, but we would gracefully say, okay, you guys look like you're set. We can now move somewhere else or open up another classroom. So a really important point, we have no interest in being competitive whatsoever. We have an interest only in fitting in to the mission of the community and within the context of other providers.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Caldwell.
Thank you. So
Thank
nice to be
you.
here.
Thank you.
Okay, next item would be the Monomoy Regional Middle School School Improvement Plan.
Good evening, everyone. Mark Wilson, Principal of Monomoy Middle School. My honor to present the Monomoy Middle School Improvement Plan for your review. There's really two sections to it. The first part is learning culture. That's really where we're going. That's 2 pages, and there are 4 objectives there. And the second half is really how we're going to get there. That's student learning, professional practices, and learning support. First, I want to thank my school council members for this past year. We had 8. The council's actually gotten bigger each year that we've been operating out of Monomoy Middle School. So I've got 4 parents and 4 staff members plus myself that made up the committee this year. And we met monthly throughout the course of the year to look at not only the school improvement plan, but some of the other items that are on our authority, including developing the budget and overseeing some of the special projects and initiatives out of the middle school for this past year. And all those agendas and minutes are posted on the school's website for anybody who'd like to kind of keep track of what we've been doing over the course of the year. Let me take you out to the link. Hey, you had this document a week ago, so I'll go, the emphasis for my remarks this evening is brevity. I hope to be done in about 15 minutes. So for learning culture, we did take the same model and approach to our school improvement plan that the high school shared with you a few weeks ago when they presented. We used the K-12 NEASC objectives for accreditation for 2020. About 8 or 9 months ago, we actually met with representatives from NEASC and talked about using these objectives for designing our next strategic plan. The strategic plan will be worked on over the course of the summer. So we'll point out it's interesting to develop a school improvement plan when our existing strategic plan will expire in about 48 hours. So once we develop the next strategic plan, I'll come back with you if there's any revisions that need to be made so we can make sure our improvement plan is aligned with that new strategic plan. So you'll see the existing strategic plan are the objectives that we'd like to align to. This first one promotes shared values and responsibility for achieving the school's vision. That's where we want to go. So the first 4 objectives talk about how we're going to be able, actually where we want to go, and the last 12 are how we're going to get there. I'll walk you through the first one. Again, I'm going to assume you've had a chance to go through this. Our school provides a safe, positive, respectful, and inclusive culture that ensures equity and honors diversity and identity and thought. That's the objective we want to have for a school. The descriptors there are the things we'll be working on in order to achieve that objective. Both of those are drawn from the NEASC standards, again, similar to what you saw when the high school presented a few weeks ago. And over on the right-hand side are some of the work we currently are doing to help bring those things forward within our school. We've got English language learner programs to support the 9 languages that are currently spoken in our school, with many of those students in those programs learning English for the first time and getting their first experience when they walk through our doors. I think you're familiar with our legendary whole school field trips that have gone out once a year to some theatrical productions. We've purposely chosen those titles for those productions to make sure they emphasize diversity and celebrate difference. For instance, the last 2 years we've gone to see In the Heights. This past year and the year before that, Billy Elliot. About a month and a half ago, I shared with you our MAP and MCAS data reviews. So you can see the in-depth work we do with the data that we have available to us to make sure we can identify learning gaps and social disparities and develop some programs and initiatives to address them. For example, I've mentioned to this group in the past the significant differences in achievement between our genders. Our females are basically outperforming our males in terms of awards and recognition, a bit higher than 2/3 to 1/3. So every time we get to an awards ceremony or an end-of-year banquet, or we look at who's being inducted into the National Junior Honor Society, it's roughly a 2/3, 1/3 proportion. And we are looking into that and seeing what we can do to even that out and raise the boat for everybody. Evening of Inspiration was something we did new this year. In January, we took a group of students that were struggling to do well in their schoolwork and actually invited them to a 5-hour extended school day. Started at 3:30 in the afternoon, ended up at 8:30 in the evening. And those students, again, were struggling, and we made sure that we gave them some leadership activities, some physical activity, and then about 2 hours of tutoring and celebration of work that got completed with a dinner, and then an opportunity to reflect on the evening before they got picked up. So those are all some of the activities we're trying to get to make sure all of our students are successful. And then we have something else we did this year as well, the Shark Leadership Training, where we took all the students that self-nominated themselves into different groups, that's Student Council, our Shark Tank Leadership, Shark Tank Cafe, our Human Rights Academy, groups of that nature, and we actually had them spend another 5 hours with us in the evening and provided all those students with leadership training. So those 5 dots go along with our objective to create a safe, positive, respectful, and inclusive culture that honors diversity and identity and thought. I'm not going to go through every one of these because it will take a while to do that, but I'm going to give you that's kind of the flavor of where we're going as a school. That's the objective. A descriptor of what types of kind of the umbrella of the work we're doing, and over on the right-hand side, some evidence and measures and products of what we're currently doing. And that's right-hand side will evolve as we add things over the course of the next couple of years. So that first section, there's 4 objectives. I think I've walked you through the first one. I'm not going to walk you through all 4 of them. Are there any questions on the first 2 pages? Learning culture, where we're going. Seeing none, I'm going to pause a real moment just because it's too cool not to go past it. On that, our school fosters civic engagement, social and personal responsibility. If you take a look at that one for one moment, that just the first bullet point, first two I want to point out to you. Two things we've done, grade 7 Beyond the Bright Sea unit, which I've talked to you about before. New title in grade 7 that ended up with our students doing some service learning and field experience out on Cuddy Hunk Island at the beginning of June, which is a fantastic interdisciplinary unit that was just finished up. Involves NOAA doing some celestial navigation, and involved the students getting some experience learning out on the Elizabethan Islands. It involved them doing some mathematical computations with regard to currents and how things move around in the bay. And also involved us launching 4 watermelons off the coast of Penakees Island to see where they might land up. That's one of the central things in the text where a young child is put out to sea. And I'm happy to share that one of them just turned up in Silver Beach in Falmouth, approximately 20 miles away. They let us know that that was where the first one landed. We don't know where the other 3 are yet, but they're out there somewhere, and we'll hopefully get the information on that. We also did a Finest Hours unit a couple of years ago. This is the second year we've done that on the rescues off of Chatham Bars that was done by the Coast Guard when 2 oil tankers capsized and broke up in a storm about 65 years ago. So both of those are dealing with our mission of creating civic engagement and social personal responsibility with regard to our environment and unique traditions and cultures of Cape Cod. Moving on to the next slide, student learning. Professional practices and student resources. Learning support is all about how we're going to get there. Under student learning, what practices do we have in place that maximize the impact of learning for each student? We'd like a written curriculum for all courses. We have that. We can improve on those by making sure they're in a consistent format. We want to make sure that we focus on depth of understanding rather than breadth of knowledge. That's why we're focused on interdisciplinary learning, project-based learning, and authentic experiences for our students. I just talked about 2 of those units. The Beyond the Bright Sea and the Finest Hours unit are good examples of that interdisciplinary learning, as is the Human Environment Interaction Project at grade 5. I know some of the school committee members were at that presentation for grade 5 when they were sharing all of the different experiences they've been doing on the environmental studies over the course of the year. We want to make sure our instructional practices are designed to meet the learning needs of each student. We've got a co-teaching initiative that we're going up and running in the middle school to help strengthen our instructional practices there. And we're using technology across all curricular areas to support, enhance, and just have students demonstrate the learning. And we've got the one-to-one Chromebook initiative that we had up and going. And we have the Makerspace initiative, which I'm going to spend a minute talking about and bragging about. We actually have a website where our teachers can send a work order into our students. They might have a missing part on one of their drawers for their cabinet in their office. And then the students will take that request, go and get a non-broken part, measure it, put it into a 2-dimensional drawing on the computer, bring that over to our 3-dimensional printers and actually print a replacement part, give it back to the teachers, so now we have a fully functioning drawer at 0 cost to the district with really good learning experiences for our students. In case you missed it, our students designed all of the props for Wizard of Oz this past spring. So they took the images of what we needed for the props, then put them on a 2D computer-aided design program, machined those up, and then brought them back to the actors and actresses so they can use them. They've also designed some new supports for raising oysters out on Mill Creek. We've got a partnership with the Chatham Conservation Foundation, and our students designed a new support system for the cages that help protect the oysters for their first 3 years. We'll be field testing that and actually collecting data on whether that's a better way to protect some of our local shellfish. So that Makerspace initiative is pretty cool. If you haven't had a chance to jump on it and take a look at it, I encourage you to do so. Any questions about student learning? Yes?
Could you elaborate a little bit about co-teaching initiative?
Sure. Under Melissa McGuire, she's reached out to our staff and invited them to partner up with our special education teachers and our regular classroom teachers to get a joint course, series of both small group instruction as professional development and then reflection opportunities where they're actually going to work and co-teach rather than have a pull-out model where some of our students who are struggling academically work with their special education teacher. Those students will be included in the regular classroom with their peers, and then that group will be co-taught by the 2 teachers working in tandem. It's it's a good model to, it's an ideal model to get the best mileage out of our special education staff and our regular education staff. And we've got 3 partnerships currently being developed right now.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions on this one? Professional practices. Practices that maximize the impact of learning for each student. Practice instructions that support and improve student learning are the professional practices. We want to engage in ongoing reflection, formal and informal collaboration, professional development. All of those are ongoing that we do through our professional learning communities and embedded PD throughout the school year. One thing I'm proud of at the middle school is we've set up what's called peer-led faculty meetings. So rather than having a faculty meeting where I speak for a while, I put an agenda out, the staff write up a particular description of something they'd like to share with their colleagues. They put together a description of where the program's going to happen, what the outcomes are, and then in groups of 5, 6, 7, or 8, our staff will divide up and go to those teachers' classrooms to hear about different practices. For instance, last year we did a brain frames strategy, which is an organizational strategy to help students take text, break it down, organize it, put it back together in a meaningful essay to do a claim, evidence, and reasoning piece. We're now using brain frames throughout the building in all of our different disciplines. And I'm happy to say when this spring's MCAS, when our students were putting their essays together, we had lots of students grabbing scrap pieces of paper and then actually planning their essays using the brain frame strategy. So peer-led strategy that we had kind of at the grassroots level took root across the building, and I cannot wait to see how our students do on their essays, because if you remember last time I presented to you, it was an area of opportunity for us. We were above the state average on our multiple choice, just below the state average on our essays, and we're looking to see what kind of strategy brain frames will have impact on our MCAS. We also make sure we continue our productive partnerships that we've already established. I gave you a link to close to 70 science and environmental learning partnerships that we divided over the course of the last time. So you can see those partnerships are thriving, and we'll continue to expand on those. We've actually added a few more to the list. And we want to make sure that we examine evidence of student learning and well-being to improve our curriculum, our instruction and assessment practices, and program services. Critical friends practices, we always talk about our seminar blocks. We'll make sure we take a look at student data and then provide them either small group interventions or larger group enrichment experiences based on the data and what they're needing. One thing we've added this past year, which I love, is we have AM and PM tutoring. Every day our building opens at 7:30, so that's an hour before we're actually scheduled to start. We have roughly 50 to 60 students in the building every morning. Some of them are attending AM clubs, but many of them are actually in our library. Our library is open from 7:35 until 4:15 every day. And from 7:35 to 8:35, we have at least 2 adults that are there to help students with tutoring. And in the afternoon, we have at least 1 and usually 2 adults to help with tutoring as well. So many of our students are using those bookends of the day to get some additional support. Again, that's all within the current operating budget. We haven't had to add anything to be able to get that done. Any questions on professional practice? Yes.
Mr. Osceola?
To go to the earlier page, the NEASC 3.2, the observational classes
Yeah.
and pineappling strategy, has that been occurring so far?
Not yet. That's something we have planned to do. It's done. We're stealing it from the high school. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
We have done some informal opportunities, and we're going to try to do a better job of mapping out who's doing what particular activity and having staff swing by on their free period to be able to observe what's going on.
Signing up to observe classes, will that be done online? Is it something posted in the faculty lounge?
We're going to put it in the lounge. I think it's easiest for us if we do it online because now everybody sees each other. So we'll have a master calendar with what's going on in which classrooms and
And
it's going to
everybody
be able
would
to
be
be
able
done.
to see it?
Yes,
In
absolutely.
other words, I'm looking for a kind of bandwagon effect to build up here.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And last one's easy. We want to make sure that we provide the supports we need and the appropriate systems to support student learning and well-being are in place. We'll be adding the BOTVIN life skills into our health curriculum, which supports those outcomes to make sure our students are getting the support for their social and emotional success. We did have a Google Classroom this year for guidance and counseling, which was fantastic. Students in the morning, if they ever want to check in with a guidance counselor, they can just very simply go into their Google Classroom and request an appointment, and they can actually sort of self-rate, is it urgent, I need to be, is it a safety matter, I need to be seen now, or is it just something you can get to me later? We had 75 students confidentially say, I need to meet with you at some point. So it's terrific because they can get help without ever having to tell anybody and feel like they're, saying to their classroom teacher, hey, I'm having a bad day today. They've used that Google Classroom quite well to be able to say, reach out and give me some support and assistance. It's been a nice addition. We have a lot of our staff who've taken the trauma-informed classroom practices, and they've embedded those things into their classroom. And we still keep going with our enrichment opportunities with our seminars and our clubs. That's been fantastic. We currently run roughly 10 clubs each term, so we've got 30 clubs going over the course of the year on all sorts of different topics. One thing I will point out to you, and it'll be in probably this year's budget, we've got 455 students in our building. Right now we've got one counselor, one assistant principal, and myself, so we've got 3 people kind of handle those pieces. At the high school, it's got 620. You've got 4 counselors, 2 assistant principals, and a principal. So we have been spread thin with regard to helping meet the needs of students at the middle school. And I will be adding to the budget, with the support of the school council, some additional staffing as we move forward. We are going to be able to pick up a half-time counselor at the middle school this year, which is helpful. That was an adjustment in staffing from the high school down to the middle school. But we can still use some more, so you can count on it seeing in my budget as it comes forward. I want it to be done in 12 minutes, and I'm in good shape. Any questions?
Mr. Russell?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Great job, Mark, very clear. I marvel at the progress of it was then, and now I look at practitioner as well as someone who's a school building leader. A couple of questions on NEAS 3.3.
Yep.
Topics come up in another forum, so it kind of interested me. On the right-hand column, reinforcing the goal, the 5th or 6th bullet down, homework, philosophy, and guidelines by team. Do you mean that there is a school philosophy and homework, or are there 4 teams and 4 separate?
I think it would be accurate to say we have 4 teams and 4 philosophies. That would be great to get to a unified philosophy for the grade level, but it still reflects some unique perspectives of the team. So within the team, we're consistent, and that's something I'd like to be able to get by the time we're done is by grade level. My personal philosophy is, as time goes, as students get older, they would have, some increasing responsibilities with regard to outside schoolwork, and you just see a natural progression as they go, K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Right.
If the world were my oyster, we would extend the school day, and we would have no homework, but the world is not my oyster.
That is true. So, for me to be clear, there are some teams that approach homework differently than another team.
That's a good way to describe it, yes.
Okay. And so at some point down the line, it probably would be ideal if the entire school had a common guideline for, would that apply to grades also? A and a B and a C and a D?
We have a common framework for doing our grading. It's the 3 Ps, and I actually mentioned it earlier in the document. Let me go back to a piece there, since it's a great question. NEASC 1.4, performance, participation, and progress. One of the first things I did, professional development that I provided to staff, was to actually have them look at a spreadsheet of grades and reach independently how they would grade the student absent of anything beyond just the grades. And in that particular professional development activity, they recognized there was a lot of disparity as to how they approached the grades themselves. So we broke that out into 3 categories: performance, participation, and progress. Performance is sort of your absolute, how did you do on the test? It's, what is the score you got on that MAP or MCAS or the end of unit exam. Participation is kind of the day-to-day pieces. Did you do your homework? Did you volunteer to participate in class? when you were called on, where you were willing sort of give it your best shot to be able to engage in the day-to-day pieces. And progress is how much growth you're showing on the skills that we look at. The middle school coalesced very nicely that participation and progress are the most important aspects of what we do on a day-to-day basis. And then conversation around what percentage should performance actually play in that. There's some school systems that have gone to actually giving you three P grades every time. Here's your absolute score on the test. Here's your day-to-day performance. Here's your progress. We're not there yet, but it's a good conversation for where we want to get to in terms of our grading philosophy, of which homework is a part of the grading philosophy. And homework here falls under your participation. Are you actually preparing to be able to participate in your classroom studies? So it fits nicely into that 3Ps philosophy. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Ms. Stout?
I actually really appreciate your answer to that question because it shows a lot of reflection on maybe Carla would always speak about 21st century skills, and things are definitely changing, and looking at that is important. My question is about the BOTFIN life skills. I'm wondering, is that going to be taught in health class, or will it be in other classes?
It will be primarily through health class. The staff members that we're training this summer in BOTFIN are our health teachers, so that would be the ones that are most up to speed on the expectations and directly responsible for sharing that information with students. But we are going to be a train-the-trainer model where those staff members are going to share other opportunities within our curriculum to build some of those pieces in. So that's the nice part about having an interdisciplinary curriculum. We can choose texts in ELA or other things where we can kind of reflect those concepts across the curriculum.
Thank you, I really appreciate that.
You got it.
Okay. Anyone else?
It's the best way to teach anyway.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Harwich Elementary Handbook?
Beginning of the year, I came to you and I said that I was hoping that this year would be a transitional year and we'd have a nice, smooth transition for next year. And we're at that point now where that's happening. So I want to publicly thank the students, the staff, the school committee, and the community at large for the nice send-off that I got last week. And to be able to tell you officially, technically a couple days, but for all intents and purposes, I'm the past and she's the future. So it's up to her.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you. Mary Oldak, Assistant Principal of Harwich Elementary. Proud Principal of Harwich Elementary, 12 a.m. Sunday morning, I think it is officially. Thank you, Sam. So we have two things to present to you tonight. The first one is our handbook, and the second is our school improvement plan, a one-year plan for next school year. Last year, we worked with Chatham Elementary and with Robin to bring a common theme and format and flavor to our elementary handbooks so that they were aligned across most of our procedures that did not reflect our culture. There's still individual parts of our handbook that would just reflect the nature of the school given the size differences and the difference in school culture. So what you have on this slide are the major notable changes to the handbook. I didn't put everything up there in regard to boilerplate name changes, extension changes, things like that. And the pagination has changed slightly since the handout that you were given last week because I added this revision slide to the front of that. So everything is bumped down about a page or so. So we added the Harwich Elementary vision statement. You'll hear me refer to that several times tonight. That was drafted, adopted by our school council in January, and we have that on the same page as the Monomoy mission statement as one of our our guiding lights and statements that we're looking to reflect in our school improvement plan, and we're very excited to have that in place. On page 4, you'll see a revised welcome letter, which reflects Sam's retirement and Sharon Keller-Hughes joining us as the assistant principal, and also reflects the focus areas for our new school improvement plan. We do have, when this went out, we did have our school psychologist as a TBD. We have hired John Graziano, who has been a school psychologist in the past. He's coming out of private consulting. He had been in Templeton prior to that, and he will join us in the fall. We have been able to add the teacher website links, which is exciting because this time last year we didn't have the teacher websites up, so that's a new feature that'll make everything a little more accessible for families. We have our staff directories just been reformatted to make it easier to find staff by role and title. We've also clarified some language on page 10 around the notification of families by an administrator if their student has been in the office for any discipline issues, just clarifying that either the principal or assistant principal will contact that family. We typically do that within the school day, if not, definitely within 24 hours. We've also added on page 12 the new automated absence phone calls. This has been a great addition to our operations in the school. We send out 2 automated phone calls in the morning. If we don't hear back from the family by 9:30, we place a phone call to the family, want to make sure everybody's home, they're safe and accounted for. We also have inserted the memorandum of understanding which you approved between the school district and the Harwich and Chatham police departments, just to highlight that partnership. And then we have the next, looks like 5 revisions to reflect changes in our health screenings to bring it in line with the Department of Public Health. We're also deleting our fluoride program because we now have Forsyth Dental coming in 3 times a year to assist students who don't receive regular dental care. And we also have added in the school and parent compact, which is a requirement of Title I schools. Previously, when Harwich was a targeted assistance school, this was actually a document that was signed by families individually and sent back because the children were very specifically identified. Now that we're a school-wide plan, we can put that in the handbook, and when the parents sign that they've reviewed the handbook, and it will just show that they've acknowledged that that's in place as well. Okay, any questions on the handbook? Okay, thank you. The second document that we'll be looking at tonight is the school improvement plan for Harwich Elementary. You'll notice that it's a 1-year plan, 2018 to 2019. Last year, we reworked the Harwich Elementary school improvement plan that was actually in place, I believe, until 2020, so that it would reflect Harwich Elementary specifically and also reflect the Revitalize and Rework School Council that we've been able to put in place this school year. We were also asking for a 1-year plan because as I take over the principalship and Sharon Hughes comes on board and our school council goes into their 2nd year, that we'd like to be able to reflect upon my findings on the needs assessment that we're doing to help inform a 3-year plan. So I anticipate coming back to you next year with a 3-year plan. Okay, just to highlight the vision statement, this was drafted by our school council back in January and approved and adopted, I should say, in January. And what was really wonderful about this is Sam and I really just facilitated the protocols around the generation of this, and our 18 school council members who represent a beautiful, wonderful cross-section of our community generated this vision statement. As you read it, you can tell that the focus is on supporting the whole child with the understanding that if all these supports are in place, that along with our integrated and dynamic curriculum, that all of our learners will be able to grow to their fullest potential. And our school improvement plan reflects this vision. So it's a really exciting time to be at Harwich Elementary. We have 3 focus areas that we're taking from our previous year's school improvement plan moving forward into this year's school improvement plan. around family engagement, social emotional learning, supporting the whole child, and our curriculum and learning, teaching and learning, and knowing that those are drivers for student growth. And when they're in place, the student is going to grow. And we really look at our MAP data to tell us that story. And our student growth data has been phenomenal. This past school year, from fall to spring, for reading, our school has our student growth goals outperformed anywhere between 95 and 99% of the schools in the country, which is really exciting. And when we met with our MAP consultant back in May, she was so excited about it and wanted to highlight what we've been doing in terms of our data analysis and supporting students through our intervention model in one of their publications. So that's been really exciting. And our PBIS data, our discipline data, is down well below the state and national average. Around well below the median. And we also have just an incredibly supportive community. I always say this is the most wonderful district I've worked in. This is the third district I've worked in terms of having the resources we need and being able to act upon them. So when we look at everything that feeds into student growth, everything's starting to click, everything's starting to hum, and we have all of those components that are just waiting to burst onto the scene of increasing our student achievement. The interesting thing is we have all of these wonderful factors in place that are just so exciting and blowing the roof off the state and national averages, but our student achievement is still not there. And it's just a matter of time. And as I like to say to our staff, we're not average. There's nothing about our student growth that's an average. Our social emotional learning plan is an exemplar for the state. Our discipline data is well below the national norm. So it's just a matter of time before our MCAS scores improve and we get off that state and national average for our MCAS scores and for our achievement scores that we see in MAP. So it's you can just feel the surge within the building. It's really exciting to be there. Throughout the improvement plan, you'll notice that we keep coming back to the goal of just one measurement, that 75% of our students will meet projected growth on measures of academic progress. And I just wanted to give you some background as to how we chose that number. This is the percent of students achieving our growth goals that MAP sets given their database of 10 million students in math and reading across the grade levels. And you'll see overall in the school that we're running right around 73%. MAP tells us that we can't be content with 50%, that's a very good showing, but we're at 73% overall in the school. Notice a little soft spot there in 4th grade in math. And in reading, we're at 75%. Again, you'll notice 2nd and 4th grade, definitely soft spots, and we'll be diving into that deeper to really understand why that is. So I wanted you to understand where we came up with that goal of 75% of students, that's school-wide, meeting their projected growth. So we have 3 focus areas, and I wrote this with our school council so that we were directly pulling the language out of our school vision statement. Our focus area number 1 is in partnership with families and community. Focus area 2 is providing a safe, stable, and joyful learning environment. And focus area 3 is our dynamic and integrated curriculum. So under focus area 1, with our partnership with families and community, our goal is to increase family and community engagement in support of student learning and the school environment. And you'll also see the connections to the strategic plan throughout so that you can see the common thread and how this all connects. Under this focus area, we have the objective of, in the action plans, of developing opportunities to foster family engagement in their children's learning. We do hold parent universities. We've been doing that for 2 years. This is an area that we're really trying to figure out what the magic recipe is to improving family attendance if it's time of day of the week, and the time of year. And so we'll be experimenting with maybe offering things on a Sunday night or maybe during a school day, and just seeing if we're able to attract more attendance in that way. Offering alternative opportunities to promote participation, really thinking about all community members and what they can offer in the way of supporting our school environment. Our courtyard garden is a wonderful example of that. We were able to get our school garden really revitalized, I guess the word would be, this past spring with the pro bono donation of a landscape designer who's a grandparent in our school, the community donations from a local church, Shepley Wood Products, landscaping company, as well as the Harwich Garden Club, which gave us a grant of $500. So when we can think of alternative ways for families to contribute, looking at ways that aren't necessarily financial and can provide a variety of time opportunities as well. We're looking at expanding our digital communication tools. Our elementary teachers do a wonderful job with apps like Blooms and Remind to reach out to families. I'll be starting up coffee with the principals during the school day, and also very much looking forward to our new community engagement coordinator here at the district level. The Castle in the Clouds playground revitalization is a very big project that will get off the ground this coming school year, doing it very thoughtfully with identifying our community partners, developing a conceptual plan and how we're actually going to approach the project, and thinking about the proposed funding for it. That's we've talked about possibly using community preservation funds and different ways to go at that. And so that will be an initiative that I'll look at to get off the ground this coming fall. We're also very blessed within our school council to have a very active advocates for universal pre-K, and that is something that we really want to keep in our school improvement plan and keep on the burner for the district. Universal pre-K is different than what Ann Caldwell was here talking about. Universal pre-K is where a preschool becomes free and available within the school district model. And so there are very complicated fiscal models to look at, but we'll continue to pursue that. And the principal entry plan is what I developed to take us from April into the fall. And I'll be conducting a needs assessment. I've already done the ASCD survey with our staff, and we're looking toward the end of the year survey that Scott just sent out to staff and families. And I will be visiting community partners this summer so that I will be developing the needs assessment report to present this fall, which will inform our 3-year school improvement plan. Second focus area is providing a safe, stable, and joyful environment which nurtures the development of an emotionally and physically healthy child. We're really looking towards our overall state model of the tiered system of supports, which is the model that Melissa has talked to you about before, that integrates everything from social emotional learning, positive behavior intervention and supports, the academic supports, as well as all the wraparound support from the community in terms of finance, leadership, human resources. And we're looking to, this is being carried forward from our school improvement plan last year. So our objective here is to continue to develop and implement the structures that provide students with that continuum of multiple supports. I was very proud of our staff this past spring when Melissa McGuire, our Director of Student Services, asked for pre-K to grade 2 teachers to volunteer to pilot Second Step, which is the social emotional learning curriculum that our SEL task force identified. And every single one of our teachers in pre-K to grade 2 volunteered for the pilot. So we actually have more of an implementation this school year. And that, I think, just really is a reflection of our staff's vested interest in supporting the whole child in their classroom. You'll also see under evidence that we have linked out the teacher observation, feedback, and support for the standard on the teacher rubric that would relate to these initiatives, so that we are in the classrooms helping the teachers with the implementation of these initiatives. Our trauma-sensitive program, we have, I believe it's 26 teachers at Harwich Elementary who have completed 2 of the 4 courses so far, and Trauma 3 and Trauma 4 will be offered this coming school year. So we have now, we'll have about a quarter of our staff certified. Well, it's a certificate that you receive from Lesley University for being trauma sensitive. It's been really helpful in placement. We've been able to look to the teachers who have been taking those classes during placement for certain children who need that type of support. And of course, we'll continue to build upon our fantastic positive behavior intervention and supports. We had our last school-wide reward on the last day of school for achieving about 100,000 actions of being respectful, responsible, safe, and ready to learn throughout the school year, and we had popsicles for everyone in the building. Thanks to our PTO. Okay, focus area number 3, the dynamic and integrated curriculum. Those words are taken directly out of our vision statement. Our goal here is to have the instructional resources and practices that will meet the learning needs of all of our students, again, as measured by 75% of our students meeting projected growth on MAP, and the link to our strategic plan. We're going to be continuing to develop our multiple data points, continuing with MAP, our curriculum-based assessments, our common summatives that we're continuing to look to align with Chatham Elementary, and our literacy and math progress monitoring measures that we are developing and have in place. We are also going to be leveraging the MAP partner resources in our instructional practices. MAP is it's actually the NWEA who puts MAP out, has developed relationships with several online learning resources that we are looking to put into place in our schools next year. One of them being Reading A to Z Plus, which is a way to help us help our teachers have the resources for guided reading. Math IXL, which is similar for math, and we are able to supplement our guided reading libraries through some of our Title I money and also through our school budget, and working on completing our elementary learning continuums, which is something that also gained the recognition of the NWEA in terms of how our staff took that information that comes out on a report through MAP and how they integrated it across their classrooms and across the grade levels so that it flowed right through. A big area of focus for us is going to provide the professional development and differentiated instruction practices. If we think about student growth, how does a student grow? The student grows when you're meeting them where they are and taking them where they can go. And our teachers have been hearing about that. We came out in the fall, the superintendent came around with Dr. Blanchard, and we talked about our learning principles for the school year. And differentiated instruction is something that our teachers definitely need some PD around. They're eager to learn and very invested. We started some efforts this school year with unconferencing at staff meetings. Unconferencing is when a teacher has something that they want to share, a practice or a workshop they want to, and during a staff meeting we would break for about a half an hour. Teachers signed up to go to different unconferences, and that's been very successful and I think really gaining momentum. Pineappling is an idea that we heard about from the high school. Pineapple is the universal symbol for welcome, and it's a way for teachers to share something that they're doing in their classroom that day or that week that they have an open door about. Say it's a STEM day that they're doing that they'd be happy to have visitors for. And it's a way that teachers can sign up and put themselves up on a calendar and put a pineapple on their door, meaning welcome, come on in. And the differentiated classroom is a book study I'll be doing this fall. We also are always looking for state and regional conferences and workshops. Our teachers had, we pushed out several offerings to them this summer on DI. And we've been talking with Mark Smith, our new curriculum director, about the possibility of offering courses in district on DI as well. Our second objective is to work on our instructional design that leverages our community resources, enhances our integration, and ensures proper pacing. Very exciting what we have going on in regard to our STEM integration. We have the long-term plan, which our consultant, Teresa Sprague, again, our community member who's doing that work for us pro bono, is working on. Larry Brookhart, our technology teacher, and Sarah Eidman, our librarian, are on fire about maker spaces. Our book fair this past spring generated $6,000 in Scholastic bucks, and they have used that money towards developing the makerspace concept in technology and in the library. And they're adjacent to each other, so that collaboration is just wonderful. We're going to be looking more deeply at our science instructional model. I belong to the DESE Principals Science Network, and we did a survey this past school year on the number of minutes that our teachers were spending on science in our schools, and that's definitely an area improvement, and it also is very indicative of how hard it is to fit everything into the school day if you don't integrate. And so we're going to be thinking about the co-teaching model, potentially a science specialist, science coach, looking at different ways to go about that. We have Nicole Sicola coming from DESE later on in July to talk to us about different models and how those might work, and also integrating our garden into some of the STEM classes as well. Developing the K-4 math curriculum pacing is going to help us make sure that our students are algebra ready in grade 8. Looking at the backward design of that, if they're to be algebra ready in grade 8, what do we have to do K-4 to make sure that handoff to the middle school is in place so that that can happen? And that's our math task force will be looking at that this year. And we do have Math in Focus, which is a new curriculum. We've been up and running for 2 years. So looking at that pacing of that so that that program's completed every year so it feeds right into the middle school to make that a reality. We also have Words Their Way, which we've been able to fund with this year's budget, and greatly appreciate that. We have piloted that K-2 this past school year, and we'll be moving forward with a grades 3 to 4 pilot. Again, tremendous response for the teachers, and everyone's very excited about Words Their Way and the impact that will have on our literacy model as well. So that is the school improvement plan for next school year. It is just a one-year plan, but that will be our focus for next school year as we work towards a longer-term school improvement plan after that. Any questions? Sharon?
Just on the words there, this looks wonderful.
Thank you.
Words Their Way.
Mhm.
I know nothing about it. Could you just speak a little?
Yep. So Words Their Way looks at word derivations and how words are put together. At the very young ages, it's looking at sounds and vowels and how words are put together, word families, and the child's ability to manipulate those sounds and form new words. It actually, that work takes place of the weekly spelling list, and children are only progressed through to the next section when they master that level. There are 4 books that begin with just letter and sound identification all the way up to root word derivations and affixes and suffixes for our higher grades.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? I have one question.
Donna?
When teachers request to attend a conference or a workshop, how is that decision made, or do they all just get to go? And is there any responsibility of the teacher when they come back? I know you mentioned some conferencing
Yep,
opportunities, but is that mandatory, or?
When we send a teacher to a conference or a workshop, if it's non-credit bearing, we have that doesn't come out of their annual $1,500 for credit reimbursement, but it comes out of our building budget, and we look for it to be tied to their student learning goal or their professional practice goal, which inevitably is tied to the school improvement plan and the district strategic plan. And when they come back, they're very excited to share the information, and they do present at a conference. In fact, we had a team of a representative from each grade level go to a differentiated workshop, instruction workshop at the MSAA up in Franklin, and it was so popular that they actually had to run it twice over the course of 2 months. So it's something people are really looking at as a vehicle and way to support each other.
Anything else?
I just make a comment, I'm thinking back about the Head Start
Yes.
overview presentation and how kids grow and also staff, where they had at a mid-afternoon nap time. I don't see any
Yeah.
nap time
Our
in
kindergartners
K through
do.
4.
They do have rest time in kindergarten. After lunch and recess, they do have rest time.
The staff?
I know. Yeah, it's, as the year goes on, students start we use that time to work with students in small group and one-on-one in kindergarten, and some kids, really do fall asleep. It can be a
I
long
was
day.
being facetious.
Yeah,
of course.
not the staff.
Great job.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh,
I snuck my hand up.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say thank you. It's very, very well drawn up and written, and very ambitious for a one-year plan. This
Thank you,
would
we can do it.
this would go against
Yeah.
a three-year plan, I think, any day.
Well, thank you.
So, thank you.
Have a great
forward to
school
hearing about
community behind it, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, thank you again. Okay, the leasing agreement for Chromebooks and laptops. Is she here?
No, Ms. Isernio said a couple of weeks ago, when we had to change the date to a Wednesday, that she was not going to be able to make it
Oh,
tonight.
I'm sorry, I
oh,
was,
thank you. Yes, Mr. Russell.
Madam Chair, as a member of the Finance Subcommittee, including Stephen, we met this afternoon with our business manager, and Katie outlined for us two needs. One, she was nice enough to put into a motion, one involving the Chromebook, so I offered to review it with us and then act on it as we wish.
Okay.
It impacts the approval of financing agreement using the Mass State contract ITC 49 for the lease of 450 Chromebooks and 145 teacher laptops per our capital plan and approved in the fiscal 19 budget. So we've already approved this. That would be Katie, our business manager, solicited quotes from 3 financing companies on Mass State contract. We received 2 responses. She received 2 responses. The lowest responsive and responsible quota was Hewlett Packard Financial Service Company. 3 annual payments of $52,985.50 times 3 years equals $158,956.50 over 3 years, fiscal year 19, fiscal year 20, fiscal year 21, with an option to purchase any we would like at the end of that lease period. And also, we have an option at the end of the lease period to purchase leased items. So based on the information, the subcommittee thought this was an appropriate way to move in the next 2 or 3 years with this. So as a motion, I would move to approve to award a contract to Hewlett Packard Financial Service Company for 3 annual payments of $52,985.50 times the 3 years, equaling a total of $158,956.50 for fiscal year 19, fiscal year 20, and fiscal year 21.
Second?
Second?
And while Katie isn't here, Jim's here and could answer any questions
Oh.
that people might have.
Any questions? Okay, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Good job, Jim.
Okay, so, next item is okay, yeah. The next act, are we down at the action?
We can, yeah.
Oh, okay. The next action item was to vote for the approval of entering the community eligibility provision program at Chatham for the food services program for FY19. Monomoy will agree to serve all children breakfast and lunch at no charge for 4 consecutive years. We are eligible for this at Chatham Elementary as the number of free and reduced students is above 40%.
I so move.
Okay.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Oh, thank you. Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. Mr. Russell, is there, or Mr. Craffey, about the contract for auditing services, are one of you available to make a motion or talk about that?
We are absolutely available, and Mr. Craffey will take the floor.
Oh, I gave my paper to you.
I've been working with Steve on this all afternoon.
So today we had a meeting about the auditing services. The current auditor did not get back to us, so that's why we're not going with that.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, so,
So,
we went, two came back. One came back at $97,500. The other one was slightly higher, about 20, what was that, Terry, $20,000 higher?
Just use that too if you want.
Okay, great.
A little bit more than 20,000.
It was about $31,000
$31,000, yeah.
higher than the second proposal.
So Katie thinks that company is just a lot bigger, so they charge more. No real difference besides that.
yeah. Okay. All right.
So since we have used them before and we were pleased with them, I'd like to move that we hire them.
Okay.
I second.
Pardon me?
Did she make a motion?
Second, yes.
She made the motion.
Okay.
And what did you say? I missed.
Oh, I just said I second.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed.
Just a point of information, the name of the auditing firm is Scapini and Peanut, CPAs.
Yeah.
And the second runner-up company was Powers and Sullivan.
Okay. Any further discussion or comments? All right, then, all in favor of vendor one, Scapini and Peanuts CPAs?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries with vendor one. Okay. Okay, superintendent's evaluation. Last week, we discussed that and talked about it. Is there any further comment or motion or? Yes, Mr. Russell?
I was absent without leave last week, and so I don't know if you reviewed it individually. So I would probably put in we did, so I'd be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity. I rated Scott's performance as proficient. I also stated that there was an exemplar, and the comment I make is Scott's ongoing efforts regarding transparent practices regarding budget, curriculum, and student progress is a high point as far as an exemplar. I also took note of, this is Scott, I believe's 5th year anniversary. I see it as 5 years of steady progress with a lot more to go as far as causing this to be the best in the Commonwealth as far as causing kids to grow academically and emotionally. Just to highlight, I mentioned the high school construction project on time and under budget. The academic challenge and the increase in rigor in our math program, staff hiring, and our yearly challenge with our school budgets all point to a solid, proficient efforts on Scott's part.
Thank you. Any other comments or entertain a motion?
I move to approve Dr. Carpenter's evaluation for the 2017-2018 as presented at our last meeting.
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Okay. Oh, yeah, the school committee recording secretary job description. I found that somewhere.
So there's a job description in your packets, and we had an executive session discussed the way the superintendent's administrative assistant job description was initially packaged when Monomoy came together. Is the school committee recording secretary was sort of tagged onto that as a stipend, but it was actually in that job description, and we had shared that it is actually more appropriate that is its own standalone stipended role. So this is that job description just set aside so that, so that we're hiring for Barbara's replacement. That process closes on Friday, at least the application period for that, and then we'll hire someone who would be the next Barbara with very big shoes to fill. And then we would hire, or actually you, the school committee would hire a separate school committee recording secretary. It could be that individual, it could be somebody else, but they're two separate entities, at least when it comes to hires.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Stout?
I just have a question on, I just noticed this now, on the school committee recording secretary job. On number 1, it says to get the packet out to us on or before the Wednesday prior to each school committee meeting. So does this mean the day before?
It says on or before the Wednesday prior to each school committee meeting, work with the superintendent to set the agenda and the attachments. They are traditionally
Okay.
sent out at the end of the week, on the Friday before the meeting,
Okay,
before
just,
the next Thursday meeting, so it's a week in advance.
could we say that in here? Just so it's clear, the Friday before the school committee, that it would be sent out.
Well, I think, if you don't mind, I
No, I
think
don't
that there
mind.
would be instances, either inclement weather or holidays or vacations, where you can't adhere to that strict 4 or 5 day advance. But it's always, the implication is that it would always be at least a week in advance.
I think the
Nothing
intention.
shorter.
I think the intention of the wording here is that this individual would work with me to sort of get things ready, so that when I meet
For the
with the
agenda
chair,
meetings.
when I meet with the chair and vice chair to plan the agenda, that,
Okay.
that there's work has been done in advance of that, so that that meeting is productive. So usually what happens is the chair and vice chair and I get together, oftentimes it is on a Friday, and there's a draft agenda that's already there that we then tweak and modify. There are times where life happens and Friday doesn't work, and maybe Friday becomes a Monday morning. There are times where there are things that go out. Not necessarily on
I'm
a
just
Friday.
trying to think of some way that could be said. The way it's been handled now, where everything comes out, say, by Monday, and we have our meeting Thursday, and then occasionally there'll be a rare supplement, that one item wasn't handed out. That seems to, the thing with that is that you have a chance to regularly read pretty much everything, and only occasionally there might be something.
Ms. Scott.
So it kind of works out nicely that we have a 48-hour requirement by law to have the meeting posted. So this meeting has to be posted. If our meetings are regularly Thursday nights, the meetings have to be posted by Tuesday afternoons. Therefore, it's usually done prior to that, so you will have at least that 48-hour.
That's just not enough.
I'm not saying it is enough. I'm just saying that that's
Yeah.
there. That law
Right.
is there.
Right.
And I don't know if putting in a job description, this is a job description, not a job responsibilities. I don't think putting in a job description would be appropriate to say, distribute to the school committee electronically on the Friday before each meeting. I don't think that's
Well-
appropriate in a job description. I think once we decide who our recording secretary is, then we can have that conversation, and it could be our common practice is this, and it works best for us because of these reasons. Again, a job description, this is what's posted and what people would look at. So
Okay. I understand what you're saying. That's fine.
So, do I have Ms. Long?
I'd like to move to approve the school committee recording secretary job description for the Monomoy Regional School District as reviewed at our
Second.
previous.
Mr. Russell?
I have a question. The last statement on the evaluation, as it's outlined, says this position will be evaluated annually. It doesn't clarify who I know the person's hired and works for the school committee, but I'd suggest the superintendent evaluate this person. With some type of input from us, but it needs to be a little bit clearer. This will be evaluated annually by somebody.
I just have a suggestion that maybe it could be with school committee input, the superintendent can do the evaluation.
I'd actually suggest maybe it's a joint thing with the superintendent and chair as a friendly amendment in that, while I'm happy to evaluate, it at the end of the day is your hire, not my hire. It's your secretary.
Should I amend my motion?
I was going to ask you to do that.
So I move to approve the Monomoy Regional School District job description for the school committee recording secretary, including and adding that the evaluation of this position will be evaluated annually by the chair of the school committee as well as the superintendent.
And I'll second her amendment.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Right,
Oh,
opposed.
opposed? I'm not trying to rush.
Damn, Shepherd.
All right,
Nothing, no opposed.
okay. So, brings us to the subcommittee reports, and this is the second reading of the policies. And,
Let's go one by one.
Ms. Long? Oh,
I have no discussion or questions unless anyone here has any discussions or questions. If not, I'm happy to make the motion.
You could make a motion. one by one.
Okay.
Sorry.
I move to approve to adopt the policies as follows. I don't have them all written out. DEC, would you like me to say which each one is, Barbara, or? I can just say the abbreviations. Abbreviated as DEC, the second policy as GBGF, IHAMB, JICH, KHB, and KHB-2.
Second.
Okay, so all in favor of these as being the second readings of the subcommittee reports?
Aye.
Aye.
And
And we're adopting the policies.
and, oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And adopting these policies?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Superintendent's report?
Just a couple quick recognitions to start with. I missed them in the packet. I'd like to thank the Chatham Anglers for donating scholarships to 9 Chatham Elementary students. I'd like to thank King's Lacrosse for providing $1,000 in compensation for the boys lacrosse program. I know we had several of the boys in that lacrosse program went and helped facilitate a tournament that was going on here, and it's nice now that we've got these front fields and how these front fields are also connected to to the community center area in Feely Field, but they had just cars parked all over the place and families from all over the Northeast here for Saturday and Sunday. One nice weather day and one really atrocious rain out, but it's nice to see families coming here for sporting events and bringing a lot of just people to our communities to for commerce and all of that. Also like to thank the Northside United Methodist Church for their donation of a $400 Ryobi 8-tool kit, battery and charger to the Harwich Elementary Custodial Department. Then in terms of just some general sharing, a reminder, we had talked about late afternoon, early evening on July 17th to have this body get together with the administrative team to, we'll say, begin a joint strategic planning process. We've actually started that process already. I had a meeting just yesterday with Dr. Blanchard and Melissa McGuire and myself, and we were tasked to go look at data through different lenses. So Carla was looking through the MAP data and what are those areas that MAP is telling us we might want to most focus on. I was looking at all of our state MCAS DESE data, including attendance and and graduation rates, to say, okay, what in that data are there things that that we might want to focus on in the creation of the next strategic plan. And Melissa McGuire was bringing her social emotional learning lens. So we have an initial draft of some areas that we think, that at least the three of us think are important. We'll be bringing the whole Monomoy administrative team together on the Monday and Tuesday before we meet with you to really flesh out ideas amongst a bigger group, minus Dr. Blanchard, who will be sipping cocktails on a beach somewhere or playing a round of golf in retirement, but much deserved retirement. So I guess my hope is that we can get input from you and really start to codify a direction with the strategic plan over the course of the summer. I'm also looking forward to, on the week of, I believe it's July 9th, spending the week in a professional development opportunity with our new Director of Curriculum, Mark Smith, and Melissa McGuire and I will be attending a week-long program on the power of mindsets, promoting positive school climate and motivation in students. So we'll bring back a little report from that conference to you, but it'll be a nice opportunity to really have the three of us spend a whole week together as Mark's coming onto the job and really start to do some bonding, but also to kind of bond over, over an important topic when it comes to schools. And then my last little note here is I'll make sure that before we next come together as a body that I work with Donna to set up some time with the at least the chair of the Harwich Selectmen and town manager so that we can discuss the fields behind the Harwich Elementary School and start those conversations.
Very good.
That would be it.
Okay, thank you. Then I think we're on to declaration of surplus equipment.
Look at that smile she's making.
Yeah, that's a very tiny list tonight. Only 45 things.
Okay. I move to approve the disposal of surplus materials as the following: geography textbook. Excuse me, I just can't tell. 20 geography textbooks and 7 O Canada textbooks.
Can you read where they're from? Because that's pretty funny.
No. From the bottom shelf of the far right wooden cabinet, room 145 of the Monomoy Regional Middle School.
Very descriptive.
I move to approve the disposal of surplus materials estimated at the value under $5,000 of 364 outdated library books, copyright dates from 1951 to 2000. Conditions of stained, dirty, moldy, etc.
Second.
And that's for the Monomoy Regional High School.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Strong women stay asleep.
Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Wow, look at all the up now.
Okay, so all in favor? Again?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, and good night. Oh, opposed?
Opposed, yes.
And then we adjourn.
Oh, and that we're adjourned.
One of these times, she's not going to go through that. Did you see this one? Strong women.